What's going on, everyone, and welcome to another tier list Tuesday. Today we're talking boss blinds, and as always the criteria is going to be how big of a deal are these boss blinds, white stake through gold stake, taking all 15 decks into account, talking about challenges, talking about high score runs, and in general trying to take the entire game into account. And without further ado, let's jump into this. I know I'm a little late to the party. This has already been done by, I believe, Gothic and Murphy. Balatro University has talked to this point. But I want to get my say in here because I feel like I have a slightly different opinion on all these. So let's start with the small blind. We're going to put this in the C, the unaffected category. The small blind doesn't help you, but it also obviously doesn't hurt you. This really has no effect and is one of the easiest ones. There's not much to talk about with this and the big blind, just because, again, they're there every round. You could argue they actually help you by the fact that they're offering up a shop for not doing much, or you can even skip them and get a skip tag. But I'm just going to put them both into here for now. And now let's get actually into the boss blinds and the ones that matter. So the hook discards 2 random cards from your hand after each hand played. When you get this in the first ante, which you can, as you can see, the minimal ante is going to be in that far right category up on the right of your screen. It can actually be killer. It can be hard. I'm going to put it in annoying because most times it's just going to be annoying for you, but there are times, again, where I feel like it's hard or killer. It's right on this kind of balance of hard and annoying, in my opinion. It's obviously not a boss blind you want to be playing against when you're relying on steel cards, because if you play a 5-card hand and you want to get those steel or gold cards, oftentimes they're tossed out. If you're searching for the perfect hand, let's say on ante 1, and you need to play a flush and you discard and you didn't get it, well, now you can't play a hand to discard because it's going to throw away 2 random cards that you were trying to keep. So again, it's one of the most annoying boss blinds in the game, and I think it borders on hard, but it's not quite there. The Ox playing your most played hand will set your money to 0. The fact that this shows up only at ante 6 or beyond, I think it really is unaffected. Like, can it hurt you? Absolutely. Like, if you have $150 and you've been playing high card and you have that leveled up, you obviously don't want to lose $150, but I rarely find it killing my run. There's only very certain circumstances in which it is going to kill your run. You could argue that maybe it's in the annoying category, but I'm really going to put it, 9 times out of 10 when this boss blind comes up, I'm like, okay, I'll figure something else out. I'll play another hand. Or oftentimes, if I really am focused on one hand in like a gold stake run, I really don't have that big of an economy. It's annoying that it resets, but it's not even annoying enough to put into that B tier. So I'm going to put it down here in the C tier. The house, the first hand of card is strong completely face down. This can be annoying, but I think it's right there with the Ox where it's really not affecting you. You can use, switch between suit and rank sorting in your hand to kind of discover which cards are which. You're not always going to have a perfect idea, but again, 9 times out of 10 when this comes up, it's really not affecting my run. And then maybe 1 or 2 times out of 10, it's annoying. Rarely do I ever consider this or the Ox hard, and basically never is it going to kill you. Moving on, we have the wall, which can show up in ante 2, and it has 4 times the base score. So the wall absolutely can be a killer, but I am going to put it in hard. I think there are slightly harder boss blinds. I don't think it kills you, but when you are playing on higher stakes and you get it in ante 2 through 4, it's pretty detrimental. The new patch that just released, that's currently in experimental phase, I feel like has solved this a little bit by making antes 2 through 4 a little bit easier for white, green, and purple stakes. And the wall is no longer just a absolute brute force thing in antes 3 and 4. All in all, I think it's hard. It's difficult getting times that 4 times base score, but it's not a killer. You can figure out a way by it. And again, as it kind of scales, let's say you get this in ante 7, usually you're in a pretty good spot where the wall isn't going to kill you. Moving on, we have the wheel. 1 in 7 cards is face down throughout the round. This doesn't help you, but it out of all of these, it's right up there next to the small and big blind. It does not matter. 1 in 7 cards being face down does not hurt. Maybe you have 2 oops all 6s and it's all the way 3 out of 7. Even then, it's really not a big deal. As long as you have a couple cards face up, you can figure out what cards are those ones face down or have a pretty good idea. Again, completely unaffecting. The arm, one of the scariest boss blinds, allegedly, when the game first released. I actually was kind of a fan of the arm. I thought it was pretty challenging in the base version, which could bring your poker hand level down all the way to 0. Now I think it definitely went from killer or hard all the way to just annoying. Like, do I want my best hand being deranked? No. But it's not really that hard, and it's really rarely going to kill you. There's only very certain circumstances. I think it's most annoying for those 2-pair, and high card runs where you're probably playing 3 or 4 hands around. So losing 2 to 3 levels, 4 levels on one hand is kind of brutal. And that's why I do think it's annoying, and it does have an effect. It's not completely unaffected, but I haven't lost on the arm in a very long time, so I definitely would not put it hard or killer. It really is the definition of annoying, where you're like, darn, that stinks. I really want my hand to be level up. And it's kind of that next ante that you have to worry about. You're like, darn, I lost 3 levels on my high card. I'm going to have to figure out, get some Plutos, trigger Space Joker, get that back up. But all in all, it's not that big of a deal. Moving on, we have the club. All club cards are debuffed. I think really you can play around this. I'm going to put all the suit debuff ones in annoying. And I think what kind of changes it from unaffected to annoying is the fact that it does debuff wild cards. I mean, honestly, all of these boss blind jokers that debuff suits are the reason why I don't play any wilds, because you're just increasing the likelihood that this card is going to be debuffed in a boss blind when you need it most. And so it definitely, I think, becomes worthy that all 4 of these suit boss blind debuffs get put in the annoying category. And another reason why it's annoying, again, it can be hard or killer if you really commit to one suit and you have no way to re-trigger that. But rarely is that the case, and rarely can you not foresee that coming in your run and kind of play around it just a bit. Moving on, we have the fish. The cards are drawn after you play a hand are drawn face down. This is definitely a step up from the wheel or the house, and it is annoying. It's pretty annoying to play a hand and then you draw a bunch of cards and they're all face down, especially if you're playing 5-card hands. It's definitely less annoying with high card or pair or whatnot, but when you're playing 5-card hands like flush 5s, flushes, straights, you don't love seeing this boss blind. Now, are you going to lose to it? Hopefully not. You usually can get by pretty easily, but again, it's pretty tedious. You really have to pay attention, and again, I think it fits this annoying category rather well. The psychic. The hands must have 5 cards. This can be hard to play around. This is another one I think borders hard and annoying, but I am going to put it annoying because, again, it's rarely killing my runs. There's only very certain circumstances where I think specifically you're playing a ride the bus build, right? Where you can't score a face card. And let's say you have a smaller hand size due to a stuntman or something else, and you have 2 kings, a jack and a queen. Well, all of a sudden, if you have no discards left, you're forced to play a face card, and that ride the bus is going to reset, and you lost. That is one circumstance in which Psychic can be absolutely killer, but again, 9 times out of 10, it's just going to be annoying, maybe even most times unaffected, but it ranges depending on your build. Most of the times, I'm going to put it in the annoying. The goad, all spade cards are debuffed. We already kind of talked about this with the clubs. It's going to go annoying. I'm going to put it right next to the club boss blind. Everything I said about clubs, just apply it to spades. The water, start the round with no discards. Killer, for me personally. This has killed more runs than anything besides 2 that are going to come up just a tad bit later. The water is hard. If you don't have a burglar or you're not playing a high card build, in my opinion, it's pretty brutal because it leaves a lot up to RNG. Now, this was more brutal in the older patch of Balatro before Gold and Orange State got changed, because when you're playing at those higher stakes, you just had less cards to go after the hands you wanted. that's been changed in the latest iteration, but I still think the water is one of the most brutal boss blinds to get, especially if you're playing 5-card builds. Again, flush fives, 5 of a kinds, 4 of a kinds, flushes, straights, and you get this in that ante 2 or 3. It can just be demoralizing, and basically you sit there and you pray that you get the hand that you need or 2 iterations of the hand that you need. It can be played around. All of these boss blinds can be played around, but I think, we have to look at this in a relative scale. I think the water is one of the ones I don't want to see, especially in those early antes. The next one is the window. All diamond cards are debuffed. Again, reference what we said about clubs and spades. It's annoying. It's not really that hard. It's not killer. You can figure out your way around it. The maniacal, -1 hand size for this round. I believe in older iterations, again, when Gold Stake had -1 hand size, this would go in hard for higher stakes, and annoying for other stakes. And now that Gold Stakes has been rearranged and you don't get that -1 hand size, it's annoying in every instance. It's not quite hard. It's not quite killer. I'd put it, again, towards the end of the hook and the arm, where it's a little bit closer to hard than the rest of these, but it's still not quite hard. It's in that B tier. If I see it come up, I'm like, not ideal, but really I'm going to be fine. All right, moving on to the eye. Every hand played this round must be a different type and not previously played this round. This is borderline killer and hard. I'm going to put it in hard because the water has definitely killed way more runs than the eye. But again, this one, if you're playing a specific build, a pair, a high card, or even a 3 of a kind or 2-pair build, where these are pretty consistent, reliable hands, but you need 2 or 3 of them to get by, the eye can be really tough. You leveled up your Pluto, your high card to level 10. You've been playing that all day, but you usually are playing 2 or 3 of blind, and then you get this, and you're like, are you kidding me? You have to figure out a way to get enough points to make up for those other high cards or other pairs or other 2 pairs you wanted to play in that blind. Not fun. Definitely not excited when I see the eye or the wall. My Balatro wiki just crashed, so we're going to reset that really quick. We're going to go back down. All right, there. Very professional setup we have here. Thanks, Google Chrome. But anyway, the eye. Definitely not easy. 100% a tier above all these. I think right in line with the wall in terms of it's going to kill a couple of your runs. It's difficult. Again, you can beat it. You can figure it out, but it's not one you want to see. The mouth. Only one hand type can be played this round. Now, this is interesting. Those in my channel know one of my main tips is read the boss blind. It's something I find difficult. When you're playing lots of Balatro and you're kind of cruising through, it is so easy to accidentally play the wrong hand type on the mouth and you lose your run. I'm trying not to take that in consideration, because if you're really trying and you're making sure to read every boss blind, the mouth is borderline just annoying, because most of the time you're only playing to one specific hand type. So in that sense, it's just annoying. And I really do think, in the sense of the times it does kill your runs, it really is of your own volition, and it's only annoying. I have countless examples. You can watch my 1,000 subscriber special, How Not to Play Balatro, where I lost to the mouth a bunch of times. But again, that's not because the game was hard. It's because I was cruising, not paying attention, and played a hand I shouldn't have. If you're fully into the game and realizing it, the mouth is just an annoying boss blind. It is not hard. It is not killer. Moving on to the plant. All face cards are debuffed. This one's killer. I think this goes all the way in S tier. Face cards are the most powerful cards in the game. You can watch my tier list video on playing cards. Aces, kings, and queens are the best cards in the game, in my opinion, and jacks are up there as well. Now, the reason aces are even up there is because of this boss blind and the fact that aces avoid the plant. When you see the plant and you're going for super high scores with kings, or even just playing a normal high stakes build or any build, it's very likely that you went for kings or queens, or maybe you're playing jacks for hit the road jack. This boss blind basically kills your run. There's nothing you can do about it if you're relying on a baron or a tribulate, or you're relying on, again, hit the road jack or shoot the moon, and this comes up. There's nothing you can do. You have to re-roll it, because it is very unlikely that you set yourself up to pass blinds without those face cards if you're building towards them. It is by far one of the toughest boss blinds in a lot of circumstances, and it's right up there with the water, in my opinion, for kind of killing my runs. The Serpent. After playing a hand or discarding a card, you always draw 3 more cards. Maximum hand size is ignored. Literally helps you. This is a boss blind that feels like it was made by Local Thunk to kind of punish newer players who are learning the game and really focused on, 5-card hands. But for those of us that are going after high scores or you play the game a little bit more, you have a good understanding, it actually can help, and it leads you to get a super high score. Here's a great example. A common way to get a high score is Baron and Mime. So Baron gives you times 1.5 mult for every king, and Mime re-triggers the cards in your hand. If you have a bunch of steel, red steel kings, you can get tons and tons of mult from your hand. The Serpent can allow you to have an even bigger hand type. So the Serpent, in a lot of cases, can actually help you achieve your highest scores possible. It's a great one to see, in Ante 13 if you're going for those high scores. So all in all, the Serpent is one, and probably the only one here that I'm going to put in the literally helps you category of this tier list. Moving on to the Pillar. Cards played previously this ante during small and big blinds are debuffed. This one's rough. I'm going to put this in hard. Now, it can be somewhat easy to avoid by just skipping the small and big blind, but there's oftentimes, I would say, green, stake, and onward where you can't afford that. You need to see the shop to get an extra joker, especially in ante 2 or 3. And again, the Pillar can show up all the way in ante 1 where it's very tough, and then you have to skip the small and big blind and basically skip any shops to start the game and just try and play against the first boss blind all by yourself. This is more than just annoying. This is tough. When this one comes up early in the game, again, antes 1, 2, or 3, it's really, really tough to play around because you kind of rely on those chips from those playing cards in the early game just to give you that extra boost to get over the hump. All in all, the Pillar's rough, debuffing the cards that you're utilizing to get your score because, obviously those are the ones you want to play in small and big blinds. Not fun. It is not fun to play around. Next, we have the Needle. Play only 1 single hand. I think this is borderline annoying and hard. I feel like I have not lost as many runs as maybe some others have to it, but I do recognize I'm going to put it on the lower end of hard because it's still difficult. Only having 1 hand, 1 opportunity to beat it. I think it kind of goes alongside what I was saying with the RNG of the Water, where the Water, you have no discards. The Needle, you have no playing hand. So if you use all your discards and you didn't get the hand you need, it's over. It's Jover, buddy. Like, there's nothing you can do about it. I don't think it's quite as brutal as the Water because it also only has a 1-time base, which means you need less score than the rest of these to beat it. But it's still not a good boss blind to get, especially, it can show up in ante 2. If you get it right in ante 2 or 3, it can be very, very tough. The Head, all heart cards are debuffed. Again, we talked about all the suit boss blinds. They're just going to be put in the annoying category. Next, we have the Tooth, lose $1 per card played. I'm not even going to put this in annoying. I'm going to put this in unaffected. Yeah, it stinks to lose maybe $10 in a boss blind, but you can recover from that, no problem. I won't even say it's an annoyance. I would say that it truly is not going to affect your run in the long term. Maybe once in a while if you get it right in ante 3, which is the minimum ante that it can show up, and your run's not going great, it can kind of kill it at that point. But we're talking about very specific circumstances, and even in that case, I'd put it in annoying. I won't even put in hard air killer, but for the most part, I think you're going to be unaffected by the Tooth. The Flint, the base chips and mult of playing a poker hand are halved this round. This is killer. When this shows up in ante 2 or ante 3 or ante 4 at any of the medium or high stakes, I just hit my head on the keyboard. I'm like, are you kidding me? It's so frustrating to play against because oftentimes you're relying on that the base chips and mult, especially when you can't get your jokers going in the shop, which let's be fair, that's a little bit up to RNG. The flint is a killer when you're not getting those good RNG rolls in the shop. I think that's just frustrating because it's like you can't really do anything about the shop, but let's say you're figuring out a way to kind of navigate the game, and then this comes up and you're like, okay, well, I lost. I couldn't get a molt joker, I couldn't get a chip joker in the shop, and then I have this. Even though I leveled up my poker hand, it's never going to be enough when facing the flint. So all in all, I'm going to put it right up here with the plant and the water as the ones I just do not want to see. The mark, all face cards are drawn face down. Unlike the plant, this isn't really going to affect you too much, even if you're playing around face cards. I'm going to put it in unaffected because usually you're building towards a certain set of face cards, and if you draw a bunch and they're all face down, you at least know they're face cards, and you know the ones on the right are jacks, the ones on the left are kings, the ones in the middle are probably queens. It can once in a while kind of screw you over, but even if it does for one hand, you could usually figure it out and come back from it and beat the blind anyway. I think I've lost to this maybe once or twice since playing Balatro, but yeah, it's not really gonna affect you. All right, now we're moving on to the finisher boss blinds. We have Amber Acorn, which flips and shuffles all jokers. This really is not going to affect you. Quick tip, if you're playing Amber Acorn, turn your game speed down to 0.5. You can play a hand and you can kind of figure out, okay, which jokers are triggering when, so you know which joker is which, so you can make sure to sort them, so you have your X mult at the end, you have your base mult on the left, and you're all good. All in all, Amber Acorn, when you see it, it's a blessing. You're like, oop, thank God we got Amber Acorn, because we should be all good to go. For Dant Leaf, all cards are debuffed until one joker is sold. This can be hard, but I am going to put it in the annoying category. I don't think it's quite hard. And you can usually play around it. If you need literally every little bit of those 5 jokers to beat the boss line, you're probably not in a great run by Anti-8. I'm not going to say that it can't beat you. It definitely has beat me. It cost me one of my gold stake runs early on. But all in all, I think at this point in my Balatro career, you could say it's just an annoyance more so than it is hard or killer. Violet Vessel, 6 times base score, extremely large blind. Yeah, this is hard. If you're playing a high card build and you're cruising along, you're playing like, let's say 4, maybe you even have burglar, you're playing 5 a hand or 5 hands around. You're like, yeah, I'm beating my score, I'm feeling good. You get that and you're like, I can't win. I literally cannot get enough points to win, and I need to re-roll it. So that is a little bit hyper specific. We're talking about high card builds, but those are very common at medium and high stakes. So I do think this is relevant to put in the hard category. I think when going for high scores, going for challenges, not all challenges, sometimes this can be brutal, but going for challenges, high scores, it's not as big of a deal, you know, at those lower stakes. But as soon as you get into the middle stakes, Violet Vessel becomes probably the most challenging boss blind. Crimson Heart, one of your jokers is disabled every hand. You could get absolutely terrible RNG and this becomes hard, but 9 times out of 10, it's just going to be annoying. You just have to maybe play a hand to move Crimson Heart to debuff the correct joker. All in all, it's very similar to Verdant Leaf, except I guess not as permanent because you don't have to sell a joker. You just have to deal with them randomly being debuffed. I think most times you're going to be fine. And then Cerulean Bell, the blind, forces 1 random card to your hand. Again, 9 times out of 10, this is an annoyance. 1 time out of 10, you get super bad RNG and it becomes hard and you kind of have to navigate it. All in all, it's not going to be too bad. So let's recap my boss blind tier list. We have the water, the plant, and flint in killer. Violet Vessel, the eye, the wall, the pillar, and the needle as hard. All of these as annoying. I'm not going to go through all of them. And then the unaffected, we have small blind, big blind, the wheel. I can't remember the names of all these. Plant, the tooth, the mark, Amber Acorn. I for the life of me can't remember the name of this one. And then literally helps you, a very special category. Shout out to the Serpent for helping us achieve high scores with Baron and Mime. All right, that's going to wrap it up for this tier list Tuesday. As always, let me know down in the comments where you agree, where you disagree, what tier list you want to see next. If you like this video, hit the like. If you did not, a dislike. And we have a new outro. Please hit that subscribe button. And remember, don't be Murphy.
But I'm not subscribed to Zaino on YouTube. And I'm sorry. There we go. Well, you're subscribed. Subscription added. I'll unsubscribe later from this account. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.